Kaylee Sawyer's story begins on March 2nd, 1993, in the quiet town of Bend, Oregon. At 23 years old, Kaylee was a vibrant young woman, known for her infectious smile and a genuine love for life, cherishing every single moment. She was living with her boyfriend, Cameron Hofer, in a cozy apartment just across the street from the local college, situated in a peaceful and safe part of the city. To everyone who knew them, they seemed like the perfect couple. Kaylee's parents adored Cameron, and her own future was bright with potential. Initially, she pursued a passion for photography, discovering she had a natural talent for it and mapping out big plans for her life. But soon, she took a job as an administrator at a dental clinic, and it was there she truly found her stride. Kaylee had a unique ability to connect with every patient, possessing a calming presence that could soothe even the most anxious person in the dentist's chair. Observing the doctors at the clinic sparked a new passion in her. She realized her true calling was to become a dentist herself. She felt a deep connection to the work, knowing people trusted her and weren't afraid to seek treatment when she was around. On the evening of Saturday, July 23rd, 2016, around 8 p.m., this promising future took a dark turn. Kaylee and a friend headed to a downtown bar to celebrate a coworker's bachelorette party. They had a great time dancing, drinking, and celebrating with the bride-to-be. The party was mostly attended by her middle-aged colleagues, so the festivities were relatively brief, wrapping up around 10:30 p.m. As everyone started heading home, Kaylee and the other younger women decided the night was still young and moved on to another bar. There, the drinks continued to flow as they danced and enjoyed themselves. During the fun, a guy began to flirt with Kaylee, a moment that didn't go unnoticed by a friend of her boyfriend, Cameron. This friend sent Cameron a text, letting him know that Kaylee was at the bar with another man. Naturally, Cameron was upset. A little after midnight, Kaylee, feeling tired and significantly intoxicated, decided it was time to go home. She called Cameron and asked him to come pick her up. Despite his feelings of being slighted, Cameron immediately left to get his girlfriend, finding her waiting with a few friends at a nearby restaurant. The drive home was tense, filled with an argument fueled by Kaylee's drinking and her interaction with the other guy. As they pulled up to their building, an unhappy Cameron stormed out of the car and headed straight for their apartment. Because of the argument, Kaylee didn't follow him. She remained in the car, needing a moment to collect herself and cool down. He waited inside, but she never came in. Then, about 10 minutes later, Cameron received a very cryptic message from Kaylee. It was an apology for her behavior, followed by a simple, chilling goodbye. Confused by the message, Cameron rushed back down to the car to get her. He found the front passenger door wide open, but the car was empty. He immediately called her, and she answered, explaining she'd gone for a walk to cool off. She warned him that her phone was about to die, and then the line went dead. Cameron's first thought was that Kaylee had decided to walk to her friend's house, which was about 6 kilometers from the campus. Hopping back in the car, he drove towards her friend's house, scanning the streets slowly, but there was no sign of her anywhere. His search that night was fruitless. Her phone, as she'd warned, was no longer picking up. When he reached the friend's house, she told him she hadn't seen Kaylee at all. Cameron concluded that his girlfriend had likely gone off with her friends and would return in the morning once she had sobered up. He went back to their apartment and went to sleep. But when he woke up the next morning, Kaylee still wasn't there. Her phone went straight to voicemail. A knot of dread began to form in his stomach. Cameron realized something was seriously wrong. This was completely out of character for her. He started calling her family, asking if they knew where she might be. They hadn't heard from her either, but they echoed his initial hope. Perhaps she had just stayed at a friend's and would be home soon. Now, deeply concerned, Cameron began calling every friend and coworker he could think of, but nobody knew where Kaylee was. He finally made the call to the police to report her missing. When officers arrived at his home, they listened to his story but initially assumed she would turn up. After all, she was 23 years old and legally free to go where she pleased. As a result, the initial police response wasn't urgent. When Kaylee didn't show up the next day and then missed work, something the highly responsible employee would never do, it became terrifyingly clear that something was seriously wrong. The police finally launched a full-scale search. From the outside, Cameron's account of the night sounded suspicious to many. He admitted to being jealous, leaving her alone in the car after an argument, and then her phone conveniently died right after he spoke to her. Unsurprisingly, Cameron became the #1 suspect. As the last person known to have seen Kaylee, his story was scrutinized. He was brought in for formal questioning, where he recounted the same events. He was fully cooperative, consenting to searches of their apartment and car without a warrant, and even joining the search parties for his missing girlfriend. Ultimately, Cameron passed a polygraph test, and he was cleared of any involvement. The police then turned their attention to the man who had been flirting with her at the bar, wondering if they had arranged to meet up later that night. Investigators managed to track him down, but he was heavily intoxicated that night and had a spotty memory of the events. He didn't know Kaylee's name or number and insisted he never saw her again after leaving the bar. Officers visited the homes of all her friends and relatives, searching for any sign of her. The only trace of Kaylee they could find was her own car, which she had left at a friend's house before the bachelorette party even started. This was a grim sign. If she hadn't gone back for her car, it was unlikely she had gone anywhere willingly. With her cell phone untraceable, police began canvassing her presumed route home, looking for security cameras, signs of a struggle, or any physical evidence, but they came up empty. Meanwhile, a desperate Cameron, along with Kaylee's family and friends, plastered the city with missing person flyers and spread the word across social media. And then, the case took a dramatic and unexpected turn. A rookie police officer named Isabel Lara walked into her station with a disturbing story. She explained that her husband, Edwin Lara, a security guard at the local college, had been acting erratically since Sunday. He had returned home late from his night shift and was clearly not himself. Something was weighing heavily on him. Eventually, Edwin broke down and confessed to his wife. He told her that on the night of Sunday, July 24th, while driving his work car, he had accidentally struck a young woman who was walking on the side of the road. According to his story, the girl was drunk and stumbled right into his path, giving him no time to stop. He then told his wife that he panicked and hid her body and personal items in the shed at their home. Police raced to Edwin Lara's house, but he was already gone. They immediately went to the shed to investigate. Inside, they found a woman's purse with cosmetics and some change, a pair of shoes, strands of blonde hair, and most chillingly, a large, blood-stained rock. The other items were also covered in blood. It was later confirmed that all of it belonged to Kaylee Sawyer. This scene painted a picture far more sinister than the accidental collision Edwin described to his wife. It was obvious he had used the rock to attack the girl and had likely murdered her with it. But Kaylee's body was nowhere in sight. Officers conducted a thorough search of the entire property, but found nothing else. It became clear that Edwin hadn't just fled. He had taken her body with him. An alert was issued for Edwin and his vehicle. It came to light that Isabel hadn't gone to the police immediately. She confessed she was terrified he might harm her, so she pretended to be supportive while he was still there. After he left, she waited a short while before finally going to the authorities. This delay gave him a significant head start, making the search for him much more difficult. When asked where he might have gone, Isabel informed investigators that his parents lived in Los Angeles, and she suspected he was heading there to hide. Police in California were alerted, and officers began searching the routes to Los Angeles. Along the way, they found Edwin's abandoned car. Inside, they discovered bizarre notes containing random numbers and rambling apologies for his actions, but the notes offered no real clues. The car itself showed no signs of being in an accident, which confirmed to police they were on the right track. His story about hitting her was a lie. With Edwin's cell phone turned off, he was a ghost. Meanwhile, Edwin was continuing his reign of terror. After abandoning his car, he kidnapped a 19-year-old woman named Andrea Mess. He zeroed in on her as she was getting into her car after a shift at a local store. Her attention focused on her phone. Edwin crept up silently, opened the passenger door, and slid into the car beside her. He was wearing a bulletproof vest and brandishing a gun. Threatening her life, he ordered the terrified Andrea to drive him to California. During the horrifying journey, he confessed everything he had done to Kaylee. He even showed Andrea pictures of his victim and news articles about the manhunt for him. Edwin explained that his car had broken down, and he had been searching for a new victim to help him get to Los Angeles. He chillingly admitted that he had even considered kidnapping a pregnant woman with monstrous plans in mind, but settled on Andrea when he saw her alone in the parking lot. Hearing this was deeply unsettling and terrifying for Andrea, but she fought to keep her composure, knowing her survival depended on it. After a few hours, Edwin grew paranoid that Andrea was driving too fast and attracting attention. He ordered her to pull over, handcuffed her to the car, and took the wheel himself. Andrea knew her only chance was to gain his trust. She calmly told him she understood his situation, but pointed out that her car was leaking oil, which was true, and that they would never make it to LA. She had hoped he would just take another vehicle and let her go, but her plan didn't work out that way. They stopped at a gas station and a diner, where Edwin warned her to stay silent or he would kill her and anyone she tried to talk to. Andrea obeyed, but tried to signal her distress with her expression, though no one seemed to notice. Finally, they stopped for the night at a motel. Andrea knew Edwin intended to assault her there. It was then that Andrea, thinking fast, devised a plan. She discreetly set an alarm on her phone. Inside the room, just as he began to molest her, the alarm went off. The sudden noise sent the paranoid Edwin into a panic. Convinced it was some kind of police tracker, Andrea calmly explained it was just a reminder to take her medication. When he asked what she was sick with, she lied and told him she had a venereal disease. The lie worked. Edwin instantly recoiled and left her alone. They lay on opposite sides of the bed, with Andrea still handcuffed. Edwin was too agitated to sleep, constantly thinking the police were closing in. Andrea lay awake, praying for a chance to escape. Eventually, Edwin got up and made a call on a disposable phone, speaking in Spanish, so Andrea couldn't understand. When he hung up, he told her they had to leave immediately. Back on the road, the car's oil problem worsened until the engine began to boil. Enraged, Edwin told Andrea they had to find another car. All her hopes of being set free were crushed. Spotting a motel with several cars parked outside, he pulled in. The door to one of the rooms was open, where an elderly man was loading his belongings into his car. Edwin saw his opportunity. Dragging Andrea with him, he approached the man and, at gunpoint, demanded his car keys. The man began shouting for help, and Edwin shot him. He then grabbed Andrea and ran toward the nearby gas station as police sirens grew closer. The man, thankfully, survived. At the gas station, Edwin found his next escape vehicle, a car with the doors open. They jumped in and sped off, but this time, he made a grave mistake. There were 3 children in the back seat. The driver was a 17-year-old boy who had just gotten his license. Edwin forced him at gunpoint to drive away from the station. The car belonged to a family visiting from Canada. When the parents came out of the convenience store, they were horrified to see their car and their children had been stolen. They immediately called the police. Edwin ordered the kids to throw their phones out the window and tried to intimidate them by boasting that he was a dangerous criminal. The children, including the older brother behind the wheel, were terrified, but the quick-thinking teenager managed to reason with Edwin. He argued that the children would only slow him down and make him an easy target for the police. Edwin agreed. He pulled over and let the children out on the side of the road before speeding away with Andrea. It turned out one of the younger kids had cleverly hidden his phone. They immediately called their parents, who, along with the police, were there to rescue them in minutes. The traumatized children told police they had been kidnapped by a dangerous man with a girl, whom they assumed was his accomplice. They also revealed that he had confessed to them about committing murders. Police immediately gave chase, not yet realizing they were pursuing the man wanted for Kaylee Sawyer's disappearance. Edwin knew he'd made a mistake stealing the car with the children. Convinced the police were right behind him, he decided to record a video confession on his way to California, apologizing for his crimes. He then forced Andrea to post it on her Facebook page with the caption "Killer on the Loose." Edwin's paranoia spiraled. He kept telling Andrea he could hear helicopters, though she saw and heard nothing. She just prayed for it all to end. He began driving faster and faster, desperate to outrun the law. In his haste, he sped past a patrol car, triggering the pursuit he so desperately feared. After a short chase, Edwin was finally cornered and arrested. For Andrea, the moment of her rescue was surreal. But her nightmare wasn't quite over. As she got out of the car, she too was arrested. Both she and Edwin were taken to the station, where police initially treated her as his accomplice. After everything she had endured, Andrea had to prove her own innocence. She had to explain that she was a hostage, not a willing participant. After 18 grueling hours, she was finally cleared and released. When the police in Bent, Oregon, learned that their suspect had been captured, they immediately traveled to California to interrogate him. During questioning, Edwin first repeated his story about accidentally hitting Kaylee with his car, adding the gruesome detail that he had smashed her head with a rock because she was still alive and screaming. When police confronted him with the fact that his car had no signs of an accident, his story suddenly changed. He then claimed he had intentionally picked her up, mistaking her for a prostitute. This story also fell apart, as there were no sex workers in that quiet college neighborhood, only students who sometimes needed a ride home from campus security after a night of partying. Finally, he told a third story, one that investigators believed was the horrifying truth. On the night of Kaylee's disappearance, he was on patrol in his work car when he saw an attractive, intoxicated young woman struggling to walk. He stopped and offered her a ride. Kaylee, seeing the uniform, believed she would be safe and got in his car. Instead of taking her home, he took her to a remote location where he raped and strangled her. To finish the horrific act, he bludgeoned her to death with a rock. He confessed that he had harbored fantasies of killing for a long time, inspired by serial killers. When he saw Kaylee, vulnerable and alone, he decided she would be his first victim, with plans for more to follow. He was initially reluctant to give up the location of her body, but eventually pointed it out on a map. Police went to the location and found Kaylee's remains, mutilated beyond recognition. The cause of death was confirmed as blunt force trauma to the head. Edwin Lara was charged with the aggravated murder of Kaylee Sawyer, the attempted murder of the elderly man, the rape of Kaylee, the kidnapping of Andrea Mess, and carjacking. He was transported back to Oregon, where he faced the death penalty. During pretrial motions, he claimed that his request for a lawyer during his interrogation was denied, a claim the officers disputed. As a result, a judge ruled his initial confession inadmissible, meaning it couldn't be used at trial. The prosecution now had to prove his guilt without it. Despite this setback, the prosecution had a mountain of other evidence. The physical items found in his shed, his DNA on Kaylee's body, the testimony of his wife Isabel, and the powerful testimony of Andrea, to whom he had confessed all the horrific details of Kaylee's murder. To avoid the death penalty, Edwin took a plea deal. He admitted to murder, attempted murder, and kidnapping, but refused to admit to the rape charge in exchange for a sentence of life in prison. Edwin Lara was found guilty and sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Subsequently, Kaylee's family filed a lawsuit against the college, arguing they were negligent in hiring Edwin. They had failed to conduct proper psychological evaluations or background checks before entrusting him with a gun, handcuffs, and a bulletproof vest, the very tools he used to commit his crimes. The lawsuit was settled out of court for $2 million. In the wake of this tragedy, the college overhauled its security policies, implementing mandatory background checks and psychological testing for all security personnel. If you found this video compelling, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this case, so let's discuss it in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and take care.